My name is Dan Valamis, and I want to kick off kind of our panel discussion on channels, solutions, and workarounds making analytics systems work. And so I'll let Edelweiss, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Edelweiss, everybody call me Edel. I'm the BI manager of ITC. I'm also Oracle Ace Director and work with Oracle Technologies for more than 20 years.
And Philippe?
Yep. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Philippe Lyons. I'm working with Oracle on the PM management, product management group for Oracle Analytics for quite a few years now. And so I'm on the design side, on the dev side, not so much on the marketing side. Thanks.
Sure. So we're going to roll through some challenges and solutions and workarounds that we've found on making analytic systems work. And each of us kind of has some slides that we've gone through, but we'll also monitor the chat or the Q&A and see if we can incorporate some of that as we go. We try to be pretty open as we're in a user community. But I wanted to share some of the lessons learned that we have from running analytics projects over the years as a consulting organization. One is, we really believe, and frankly, I'll tell you, not necessarily everybody agrees with all this, but I'll show you the way we look at stuff. One is, we believe in beginning with the end in mind. There is a very strong temptation to start with the data and to say, this is the data I have, let me start building analyses on that. And I will tell you, we like to, on our projects, start with, what is it you're trying to achieve? Because quite often, the data that you have is not the data that you need to do the analysis that the business group wants to do. So begin with the end in mind. We even mock stuff up sometimes with Excel spreadsheets or something like that, just to get a sense of where are we heading with this. Another we like to do when we're allowed to is involve the users very early on. These types of systems of how do you design something so that it answers a business problem and not just make pretty pictures, involves getting the users involved. Also, listen to your stakeholders. The people that are going to benefit from the system, listen to them, not just IT, because IT, frankly, often thinks they know what they need to put together, but enough time has transpired that they don't know exactly what needs to really be done. And we believe also in delivering value iteratively. We think of building these systems as building a garden where you need to tend to it. You need to enrich the soil. You need to then plant things, water it regularly, and weed it. And so that means removing things periodically. It's not a building where you design this with a foundation and everything's set in stone. These are meant to be living, breathing systems, in our opinion. We definitely believe in focusing on data quality at the right phase of the project. Your system, if you go live, announce it, and it has dirty data in it that just doesn't make sense, will kill the project. By the same token, you're trying to grow it, and it may be that you need to mock some stuff up for a while. Just make sure everybody understands that and you have buy-in from the executive branch on that. Also recognize ETL takes longer to do right than you think it does. This is what's always holds up our projects, is getting the right ETL, extract, transform, load, the data manipulation in place. We also believe in standardizing on a business model and using something called the repository definition, or RPD file, to make it so that everybody is calling the same thing. And we also believe in putting the business logic lower down, the lower you can go basically with it, the better, rather than in the reporting layer. There's a temptation to just throw the data out there and then start building all sorts of stuff on top. And that's why sometimes we see very poorly performing systems, because the system is just working too hard, aggregating up 5 billion rows every time you want to do something. And then training the users. It's not as intuitive as you think. And just some simple training sessions. I think Gary went into this a little bit in saying, yeah, I mean, just some getting started sessions. There's a temptation to get the system put together and then say, hey, users, you're on your own. And even some lunch and learns. It doesn't have to go deep, but having some training sessions and some cheat sheets really help. Now, some of this is maybe a little bit obvious, and maybe some of this is controversial. I'll invite Edelweiss and Philippe. Any comments you have on some of these?
Not
No,
as sim- yeah.
no, go ahead, Philippe.
Please go ahead, Edelweiss.
No, I think it's so have the especially the stakeholders and the users at the beginning is crucial. Otherwise, the project is not going to have a happy ending, basically. And the other thing is the train users. I totally agree with that. Because we work with these tools all the time, we think that this is like a piece of cake because it's really easy. It's very intuitive, but despite it's intuitive, you need to explain the users and to give just a small sessions. And one thing that I did for some of our clients, which I think is quite useful, is to have sessions every single week. So every single week, people comes with some questions. I want to do this data visualization, and I don't know how to. So they start doing it with you in a group. You know, when it's presential is better, but right now we do everything remote, and you can do that so people get confident with the tool and how to start working with OAC.
Philippe?
Yeah, pretty much same comment, and I like very much the bullets at the end of your list. In particular, do not put the business logic in a single place. Try to understand how the product manages it. Maybe one bullet I would add is do not try to only reproduce what you had before that. Just expand into the product with its whole capabilities. But that's great, thanks.
Here, we'll update it right now. There, okay. Then some best practice, focus on dashboards. Some of the things on that, you know, this is stuff that we especially do at Valamis. Best practices are objective guides for effectiveness rather than just what seems to look good by one person. We believe that visualization should be guided by human cognition, accurate representations of data, and a preferred message. If your goal is to present a message, think about that objectively and do it with a way that is really industry standard in terms of how you show things. And visualizations should not be guided by taste or what looks good to one person or to entertain users. And we see this all the time, a desire to fill the white space. There's actually value in having some room between your visualizations and allow the eye to rest. And this is guided not just based on you know, what looks good, but it's by cognitive science where people have, you know, done the thing where they have the camera that's looking at people's eyeballs and where they focus, all that type of stuff. We take at Valamis kind of an approach, especially on this type of way of guiding presentations. All right, so I wanted to go through one little tip that I had in here on dimensional analysis. When you're doing scatter plots, when you're looking at multiple dimensions, this is an order that we like to think of. I just pulled some of these slides from some of the stuff that we present in our classes and such. Typically in a scatter plot, the y-axis, the vertical axis, is the response variable. That's of the highest interest. And then the x-axis is the independent variable. What happens to sales when we change the cost, the price, something like that. And then you can also look at things by color, by size, trellis it by category. You can use shapes and then filters. And we purposefully have these in this order because depending on the importance of your dimensions, and by the way, hey Philippe, a tip for you all at Oracle, if you could tie this type of way of looking at things to the machine learning algorithm of being able to go and look at the attribute importance of the data, it would be fantastic. This is the type of direction that I think Oracle should be heading in. For all I know, maybe you already are, but this is the order that we think of things when we look at dimensional analysis, okay?
Point taken, thanks, Dan.
And then you can also use a logarithmic scale for long tail distributions, or often people try to do stuff in one visualization. If you can break it into multiple graphs, that's helpful. We like to have CBI standards help drive some value. It's best practice driven, and that works best when it's documented and reinforced with examples. So we like to go and develop some templates that others can build upon, and have some dashboard layout and style with guidelines and standards on where you put prompts. By the way, a new feature in 5.7 coming out is the ability to use filter visualizations. It's going to get us a lot in the data visualization interface for being able to put prompts anywhere on the screen, and be able to have those drive other visualizations. Think about prompt styles, navigation. Think about naming and titles. You can go into graph design, look at how you design your tables. All these can be standardized, and it will help you with your adoption of the system if you standardize some of this rather than just being willy-nilly. So setting some standards really helps. Some things about data sets: consider how you want to work with the data. And if it's a subject area, that's accessible to both classic OBIE dance answers and also the data visualization interface. The repository can handle many of the complex modeling issues that you have in terms of how is aggregation set, those types of things. And then, one of the things that happens with this is usually when you're doing this, your repository data additions would require a full dev, then test it out, and then go into the production cycle. And when you do this, the data's not stored in the BI layer, it's just the metadata. And that's especially if you're high quality, high cost, and high lead time type of data. Data sets with external subject areas are especially good because they're fast and flexible. And this is one area where Oracle really added to the product in the last 5-10 years. But it can lead to spread marks, where people have data all over the place with no organizational way of organizing all of that. So they can create it from data connections, data flows, uploads, a project. This area of use in subject areas is kind of getting a new renaissance within the Oracle Analytics community that I've seen, because there's a lot of value in there. And it's where actually the Oracle product especially shines, because they have such a strong foundation with that OBIEE foundation. So some strategies for data sets. It can be similar to power users for creating analyses and dashboards. You can have explicit grants. I think Philippe will go into this more, so I'm going to go let him get into it. One thing I'll just put in a quick mention: if you want to see what's new in Oracle Analytics 5.6 and 5.7, here's a link that you can go to. That'll be taking place in July 29 in another few weeks. You want to see what's new? We give live demos of that. And you can register for that webcast, and also one on autonomous machine learning in Oracle Analytics, Enterprise Predictive Analytics for everyone. So it's the concept that one of the new features in 5.7 is the ability to register algorithms from the Oracle database and use them directly in Oracle Analytics. We'll go over that on August 5th. I'll put those in the chat window so you can sign up for that. And you can get started with, we've given some of these, oracle.com/OAC live is a URL that's shortened for that. And you can use videos. And I think we've gone through a lot of this before. With that, I'll turn things over to Adel to go through her slides. And Adel, I can just click through them, or you can share yours.
I prefer share mine because I will just pass it the slides very quickly and go to the Analytics Cloud, which is the most interesting thing. So one of the features that it's really good in Oracle Analytics Cloud is the explain feature. The explain feature allows you to do right-click in one column, could be an attribute or could be a fact, and you will understand what is happening with this data. It's going to show you the basic facts. It's going to show you also the key drivers of the relationship between this column and the other columns in the data set. So why we should use this? And there are two main reasons for me. First is overcome the blank canvas syndrome, right? So you are there with a data set, which data set probably has a lot of columns, and you try to build something, but maybe you don't know for which is a right beginning for you. So this is the first thing. And the other thing is to avoid the cognitive bias. So sometimes we want to analyze the data, and we are coming with the, I know what is the reason why this is happening. And you're going to try, unconsciously probably, to prove that you're right? Is that there is the Nobel Prize, Ronald Coase on economic say that if you torture the data long enough, it will confess. So because we are all human beings and we are trying, usually to have the right, it is important that we are kind of be most objective as possible. So this is one of the things. And one thing that I want to show you to you is, because we have many clients that comes from the BI world, so Oracle BI. So they are doing migrations and lift and shift from Oracle BI to OAC and start using Oracle Analytics Cloud for data visualization. But one thing that happens, so let me show you, for example, this is I need to log in again. Perfect. So this is the analytics home, as you saw it in Gary's presentation. So one thing that we can do is create just a very easy data visualization using one data set. It's going to take me 5 minutes in total. So I can select one data set or a subject area. Subject areas are the subject areas that come from Oracle BI, right? So let's start with a very simple data set. Just I want to show you something very easy. Let's go to sample states, for example, sample order lines. Okay, and add to the project. And if I have to show you the explain features, okay, so for example, number of customers, profit, okay, I can have the explain profit. So it's going to explain what do I have here in this column, and also the relationship, okay, that I have with other attributes, other measures in my data set. So I can select, let's skip, okay, let's select this, and let me show you something, and select this one, just to show you. So you can select some visualizations that you think are worthy of you and are interesting, and add select. And then you have, instead of a blank canvas, you start working with already created visualizations, right? So I select just one, as you see, but I can select many of them and show it into a new canvas. So what happens when I have to work with subject areas? Okay, if I, for example, come here and go to the data, I want to save this. You will see here all the data sets that I have in the demo environment, many data sets, and also the business areas that come from the classic home of Oracle BI, okay? So for example, if I come here and select, you know what, I want to create a project based on a subject area, I will see it in the same way that I see it in Oracle BI or in classic home. And if I go right click here, I cannot see the explain feature. In order to use the explain feature with the subject areas, I need to create a new data set. And this is what we're going to do. So we're going to home, I won't save anything. Create data set. And I create something that is called local subject area. So in this case, I will select one of these subject areas that I have in Oracle Analytics Cloud, for example, this one, and you will see all the folders and all the columns. So you can select the columns that you want, for example, and let me select something very quickly. Product, brand, product type, and time. So you don't have to select anything, everything, right? So you just can select the ones that you need. Okay. Here, I put a name, some visualization desktop, DB, and that's it. It will add me a new data set, and I can create a project with this data set. So I will create a project with this new data set that I created based on a subject area. I can have all the same columns that I have in the subject area. I just selected the ones that I needed, okay? And I can do the same thing. Right click and right in here, you will see that you have the explain feature, okay?
Edelweiss, you actually answered live the question. Maybe you saw it in the Q&A. Somebody asked, what do you do?
Really? I know, I didn't see it.
Yeah. Somebody asked, can you use explain against a subject area?
Awesome. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, and another thing that I was asked in, so I was participating in the Oracle Groundbreakers YATRA conference this week, sorry. And there was one question that was if I can use subject area for machine learning. And because my talk was about Oracle in this cloud and machine learning. So let me show you very, very quickly. So this is my subject area, my local subject area. So I will create a new data flow. I won't go through all the details of machine learning because it's too long. But the important thing is, if you see here, you don't have the subject areas. You have only the data sets. But because we created a new local subject area based on the subject area from BI, I can add it here. And I can use it as a regular data set. So I can join it with other data sets, no matter what they come from. They come from an Excel file, from a Jonas Data Warehouse table, for a MySQL table, whatever it is. And you can apply all the steps, any of these steps that you have in a data flow, including use this data set as to train or build a model, okay? Or you can use it also to apply a model, okay? So this is quite important, okay? So you can use the business area that you have in the same way that you can use a data set using the local subject area, okay? I think I'm out of the time, so I will love to pass the control to Philippe, that he will have many interesting demos.
That's great.
Thank you very much, Edelweiss. I think you made quite a few great points there about the ability of running all of this on subject areas, or local subject areas, as well as what you just mentioned, the capability of OAC consuming machine learning that is built into the database. That's very powerful. So my area is actually slightly different. Let me share screen. And let me make sure I share the right screen. Okay, and okay, I would like to talk. Can you see my screen? Can you confirm this?
Yes, we see some OAC access and governance questions.
Thank you very much. And I will turn off the video just to make sure that the bandwidth is saved for voice. Okay, in the next 20 minutes here, I want to quickly, or 15 minutes, I want to quickly address with you or go through a few questions that we hear from some of our customers on very practical questions around basic access and governance questions on Oracle Analytics, as Oracle Analytics Cloud or Oracle Analytics. Like, for instance, how do I share? So when I build DV is self-service projects content, how do I share it as a view-only mode to my other users? Or another example is there any way to do role level security, so data level security without building a repository? Or is there any way for me to have an idea of how many projects are in my OAC and how many data sets and how they join together and how about data flows and minimum the governance there? Or simply how do we do monitor usage of OAC? So the last one you may be familiar with. So some of these topics are covered in a blog that many of us Oracle PMs are contributing to. It's this blog at the bottom. You feel free to go and visit this. More details, of course, than what I can offer here in 15 minutes. Let me start with, once I have built a project in Oracle Analytics, how can I share this project with you so that you can view it, but you cannot override it? Well, that's actually fairly simple. If you open a project in or design a project in Oracle DV, so again, I am talking about DV, self-service, versus the legacy version, which is Answers. So Answers offers the ability to build reports that are exposed into dashboards, and then dashboards are clearly a way to consume and not to edit or design. You can certainly do this with DV content as well. But my question here is, my user is an analyst and he's built a project and he wants to share it right away without building a dashboard. How can he do this? Well, in the project properties in inspect, and I'll show this in a minute, there are two tabs. One is called share and one is called access. You can see these two tabs here on the slide. Now, well, that's confusing to me because share and access, edit, view, read only or read write. So in fact, what this means is share is for consuming the content, access is for allowing the file override. So what this comes down to is this. Oops, let me go back to the deck. Comes down to is this. This matrix here is showing share on the left and access on the top. So you see there are really three combinations. When I have share set up as view, then my user can only view it. He cannot save, he cannot save as, he cannot edit. So share, consumption, when I set it to view, for you as users, you cannot do anything than viewing it. That's what we want. Now, if I had set up consumption as edit capability, I also want a more granular control saying I want users to be able to override my own work, or I want users to be able to edit but save as something else. So that's the little difference here. That's why we have an access tab. Now, what it comes down to is you have seen, I think it was Edel and Dan showing you the live demos of OAC. So this is a live demo environment where I have some project. This is actually the environment that Edel was showing you a minute ago. So here's a world tax project. And if I go to inspect in that world tax project, actually I am admin here. You can see me as admin. If I go to inspect, my share here is set up as obviously edit for me as admin, but for another user visitor, it's set up as view. So if I toggle to a different browser and go to the same environment, let me bring the browser into the right screen. That's the same environment, but I'm logged in as visitor now. And here's the project, and I'm going to open it as visitor. When I open as visitor, I can't see the design grammar pane. I cannot see the data set. All I can see is the different tabs. I can have the interaction capability. I can right click, I can filter, I can remove, I can use the interactiveness of the viz. I can add some filters, but I can't save. I can see narrate, but all I can do here is I consume. And as a matter of fact, when you log into this public environment, all the projects that you have access to as being a visitor are edit proof. You can't edit them, you can only visualize them. So that's exactly the feature I was trying to show you.
So it's Philippe, it's almost as if you want to make sure the public, when you make public accessible, it's almost as if you want to make sure the public doesn't pollute your instance.
In this case, yes. maybe with you then we would give, if we were in the same organization and we share a project, we could consider that Edel is a designer and we want her to have the ability to edit things, but yet edit and save them as something else, because this project is also visible to the whole audience in this call. So even though she could edit this, we still want the original to remain untouched. So that's why we have the ability as well to go in another granular aspect, which is the access. So this is useful. This is true as well for, I mean, to some extent it's true for data sets as well, and that paradigm replicates, but it's very easy to build consumable content. Let me go on. My next point here is role level security without a semantic layer. So role level security is a capability of saying, hey, when I have a data set where I have usernames, I want some users to only see in the same query their part of the data while other users see their part. Now, typically you answer this by a semantic model, so a metadata repository, and you have lots of options to do this. It's actually not very complex, but in some cases you may say, hey, I'm an analyst and I just need a quick solution to addressing this. So let me go again back in the product. So not this browser, but let me go to the other browser. And here's a project that I have where I have some data about sales across the world, and I have a few users, right? So I have Chandler, Joey, Rachel, and admin, and I am admin. And here, I need the users to only see the regions that they own. So you can see some regions of the world. But there is a field. I'm going to add a calculation just to show you the syntax. There are objects that exist here as part of OAC. If I scroll down, hopefully you can see my screen here. There is system and there is user. What is user? User, I'm going to call this test. User is simply a syntax that is going to return the username that is logged in. Okay, so if I go user, here's my test calculation, create a best visualization. This is saying we are admin. So now we can use that syntax just to build a filter. So I'm not even using my calculation here. I'm going to build an expression filter. And expression filter, I'm going to say, I would like the users who are going to watch this report to be filtered by saying their user equals the owner value of my data set. And if I apply this filter, the report changes and only shows me whatever I have access to, which is admin. And there is, if I protect this filter so nobody can change it, then there is no way for any of us to change it so that we can see the data from somebody else. So that's a rudimentary, but a pretty efficient way of doing a 30 seconds role level security within OAC. There are also capabilities of using session variables, which will take you into more details directly in that same expression filter, but I'll let you check the blog on this. There is an entry for this. So that's what I just demoed to you. Next one is, I do have a challenge myself maintaining and governing all of content that we are producing as PMs and field for demos. Pretty rapidly on my OAC environment, I end up with lots of data sets, lots of projects, lots of data flows, and sometimes data sets get deleted and projects depend on it and vice versa, and I have orphans. So how do we monitor this? So there are several ways of doing this. Here's a quick one for you, a rudimentary one. If you go to the Oracle Analytics library, you may have seen some URLs in the chat for this. You will see, in particular, in the extensions tab, several plugins. One of them is called a governance plugin. So if you look for, if you can search on the search bar, you can download it. It's free and it's a small zip file. When you deploy this plugin into your environment, in fact, let me quickly show you what it looks like. So here is my environment. Let me actually just remain on the single data set. I have deployed the plugin here. Deploying a plugin is fairly simple. It's actually very simple. And here is my plugin. It shows as a visualization. So I'm going to drag this here, and that is telling me, let me click on it so I can speak while it's running. This is just saying, look, I don't need any data here. This is just a script that's going to call web services on OAC that is going to gather some data about my OAC environment and produce them to me as Excel files. So I'll let this run for a few seconds, and I'll go back to my deck so you see where I was. Hang on. Here we go. So this is running. In a few seconds, you will see this list. It's gathered stat about projects, about data sets and whatnot. And it will, actually, you can see at the bottom here of the slide, the 4 data sets that it will produce. It will produce 4 CSV files, not data sets. And these CSV files are giving me a list of projects with their path, with their owner, the created time. It will give me an intersection table between projects and data sources. It will give me a list of data sources and list of data flows. And once I have this, I just import this in OAC, and I can produce all sorts of reports. So let me show you this. Maybe it finished running already. Yes, it did. So here are the data sets. So I have already imported these data sets in OAC. So this was just to show you. And here's a simple report where I have brought just my data sources data set. So in this environment, I have 82 data sources, 20 of which are external, so pointing to databases, 11 of which are subject areas, 51 are XSAs, file XSAs, so file, Excel, and so on. So, okay, I could do an analysis here, but I can simply also join these data sets together. Let me just do a very quick one here. It's sys project sources is 1. That's the intersection table. So I'm adding it to the project. It joins to the data source 1. And now I can see how many projects are using each data set. So if I go, for instance, into, so this is external. Let's expand on this one, which is, this is my repository and XSA's file-based XSA. I may want to say, show me how many projects depend on each of these subject areas. So see, I have 11 projects that depend on this repository subject area, and pretty much 7 projects on this data set, and so on. So I could even just bring my project name as part of this. And so we would see the details. Let me make this be a pivot table. So I can go and get some understanding here of what is what. So for this subject area, I have all of these reports. I have the path in the other file. And for this subject area, I have this. For that one, I have actually no projects depending on it. And for some projects, maybe I have some projects where I have multiple data sources. So see, this project here has a data source and access to all these data sources. So now I can do some, I'm trying to see if, some projects probably are orphans or using data sources that are not existing, and that will help me understand what is broken. And I can go also, of course, we can go a little fun with representing this with nice visualization. So now we see which project goes to which data source. Now this is too small. Anyway, that is a good and simple way to get some, let me go back to the deck again, sorry. Simple way to get to some minimal governance and basically management of my project and my data source. This is calling web services on OAC, so APIs on OAC. And of course, this is limited to the access of the users running it. So if I run it, I will see my data sets. And if you run it, you will see your data sets. And if an admin runs it, he will see probably all that he has access to. But it will still help me doing some sanitization and understanding of dependency that I have with my content. Again, this is a plugin, so feel free. This is set here as an example. It's not maintained. However, you feel free to access this code behind the scenes and grow it. And we're looking forward to any contributions to the library of public plugins. And if you're interested, we could probably enrich this data set, these outputs with more columns. Finally, how do I monitor the usage of OAC? Well, there's a very out-of-the-box vanilla feature that is fairly simple to turn on. It's called usage tracking. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with it. What it takes is really 2 things. On OAC, I need to be using a repository. So that requires me to have a repository and semantic layer as part of my deployment. But once I have this, all I need to do is to create a connection pool, a data set, data source here, which you can see is called, in my example, usage tracking with a connection pool pointing to a database. The database is something that OAC accesses. It can be anything as long as OAC has access to it, except for remote data gateway databases. And the name for what we call a physical schema in the repository. So this is actually very simple work here in the repository. Even though the screen looks complex, it's fairly simple. The second step is just to go in OAC console. So in the OAC user interface, if you wish, there is a console page where I can look at usage tracking parameters, and that's the screenshot. And all I have to do is to provide the name of the data set and the connection pool for my usage tracking, and the tables that I want to store the physical queries, and the table name that I want to store the logical queries. So this is just in pure copy and paste of what I showed you in the previous slide. Once I've done this, I'm ready to go. The system will start logging in all the usage of all the activities of all my users. And so if I take one more minute to show you a live example here, if we go as my admin user on that public site, I think that we have a, all right, so let me go and find this project. We have an example. We want, I think it's usage. Right there. So this is updating. This is a project that reads the tables, where the usage is logged in. So I have a subject area, not a subject area. In this case, I have a direct connection to the table of logical queries history. It's giving me a lot of detail about all of this. So username, obviously subject area or data source name, number of rows returned, is it cached, is it not cached, what's the session ID, what's the time, what's the dashboard, what's the report, all sorts of details there. So here's a rudimentary one telling me that in the past 15 days for this user, let me actually use all users here, there were so many visits to these projects, and that's how they did over time. And maybe I want to look over more than, let's say, about 15 weeks. How's that? This is the number of rows that were retrieved and so on. So you can go and monitor a lot of detail here about your usage, about your users, about your report, what is being consumed, what is not, and do a complete tracking of the activity on your system. So this is my last, sorry, I have to toggle between my slides. There are a few examples as well on usage tracking that we can share with you once you have your content set up, your connection set up. So feel free to ping us about this. Then this is pretty much what I had on my side, and looking forward for any questions if you want to discuss, if we still have time.
Super.
Thanks.
Well, that was great, Philippe. One question came in: how do you create row count without having to go into explain?
Yeah. The short story for this is it depends. Simple is to count of, the most robust is to count an attribute in your data set. So take any column in your data set that has data and count it. So that will behave as a row count. Now, why am I saying that's the simplest one? Is because if you do a sum of one, or if you do any specific formula, you are at risk of having results that that may not be correct depending on the aggregations you're using. So my safest answer to this is do a count aggregation on a column of your data set. If you don't have a column, if you're using all your columns already, just duplicate one column in data prepare and do a count of this column.
So in the expression, yes. Create an expression.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Another, we don't have time for all of them, but will access to data actions be available in narrate/presentation mode in a future release? This is a major limitation in these more executive views to allow linkage between Canvas and projects and allow for more intuitive flow when additional analysis is needed.
Yes, and narrate is being under, basically the whole experience as a dashboard consumption via narrate, but not only, is being invested a lot. So I believe the answer to your question is yes, it will be addressed. The activeness of narrate will be addressed. Now, I confess, I don't know that level of detail, so I'll have to get back, but I'm pretty sure, yes.
So the person asked that if you could put that in the Slack channel, we can get
Gabby
an
Rubin.
answer for that.
Yes, I will. Yeah.
And we can also handle some of these offline because we get a full transcript. And the last one that came in time was session layer. Can session level variables be set on DV?
Consumed, definitely. Set, not yet on DV.
Yep. Okay. Super.
Thank you.
With that, let me, now I did, just so everybody knows, I did go ahead because what Philippe was showing is actually some material I had not seen before. And I have a slide deck. So Philippe and Adel, with your permission, I've updated it, and I posted it already, the slide deck, up to the Slack workspace in here with the slides that we presented as a PDF, okay? That way people can go and get immediately value, sign up for our Slack workspace, and Adel, if you want to put that in the chat again, people can know where to get the slides today, right now, instead of making you wait 3 days until we catch up, okay?
Exactly.
With that, let me also thank my co-panelists, Edelweiss and Philippe. Thanks so much for sharing all that. I think this was great.
Thank you, guys.
I do want to plug real quick the upcoming TechCast days, the TechCast on graph analytics. It's in here. You can find more on that. And finally, save the date for A&D OUC TechCast days in fall, October 13th through Thursday. Keep an eye on it. Things may change. That's one of the things we've learned this year. Look at analyticsanddatasummit.org for more information. Anything else for my co-panelists?
No, I think it's good. I already put the invitation link for our Slack workspace. Guys, join us. It will be an interesting conversation, and we want to have you there.
I do also have another feedback on my side. I just want to thank you guys on behalf of the whole analytics product management team and development team, Edelweiss and Dan, for taking the energy and the resource to entertain this community. And we're really thankful for this, and we're proud of the work that you guys are doing about this. So feel free to, looking forward to helping you more supporting this. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. With that, we'll wrap up. Thanks, Edelweiss, for helping me host this. Thank
you, Dan. It was a pleasure.
All right. Bye, all.
See you. Bye-bye.